I'd like to introduce now Amelia Womack, who's the Deputy Leader of the Green Party. Great.
Thank you so much. And what an important event to be having. It's been really interesting to hear such a range of opinions, a range of different issues, and I think that we're going to take a lot away from today. And as Deputy Leader of the Green Party, I'm probably not surprised that our position, I'm against any development of nuclear power, and our position is very clear on this in our party as well. In fact, many of you might not realise that in the Green Party we make our policy as a result of evidence-based policy that comes to our conference, and this is discussed, debated and voted on by our membership. And that essentially means that our policies never change with our leader, as it's our membership that drives those policies. And we actually had a debate on nuclear quite recently. It was, I believe it was 2014, someone actually brought to the conference, should we revise our position on nuclear power? And despite a very clear debate around a number of different issues around the environment and climate change, as well as safety and security, there was a clear no thanks that came from the Green Party conference floor on changing our policy of saying no to nuclear power. Because we know that fundamentally, the issue of nuclear power is essentially a discussion about private profits versus public risk. In Germany, the German Greens had an issue, Kate did mention the work that they've been doing there, they actually had an issue where a nuclear power plant had a very small leak, where the nuclear waste leak, and they tried to track down the company who was creating this. Actually, the company had long gone. It had been bought out by another company before it had been disintegrated, and no one could be found to be held to account for this nuclear leak that was happening in their countryside. And so obviously the government had to put out millions of pounds to try and clean that up and secure it, to make sure that people's health and safety were not at risk. Again, as was highlighted, a cost to the taxpayer, a cost to the government, a cost that could be better invested somewhere else. Because it's interesting, isn't it, that when we have disasters like Fukushima, that people say never again. Never again after Chernobyl, never again after 3 Mile Island, weren't necessarily said to the same levels as we hear of other issues that happen. But really, never again should people's lives be put at risk in this way, and never again should we be having these huge costs to human life, environmental life, and a fear of what might happen as a result. When we talk about those who have been affected by this as well, I think we have to praise those brave people, those brave veterans in Japan who are part of the older part of the society, going in and helping to clean up the waste, saying that they don't have as many years to live and therefore will put their lives on the line to help the clean-up operation in Japan. And the ongoing impact, I think the original impact of fear was felt in so many places. In fact, I lived in China for just over a year, and some of the people I knew there emailed me, so I was teaching there, and some of my students emailed me to discuss the fear that they had of eating fish, of the fact that they might be impacted as a result of this, and got in touch because they didn't know what was going to happen to their health and well-being as a result of this event. Despite these events, and as events throughout history, we're still consigned to this deadly form of power, which really should be, we're still resigned to this new kind of nuclear power that really should be consigned to the dustbins of history. Because if you look at the history of nuclear power, let's begin with where it began. And really we discovered it as a result of our weapons testing that was happening. From the very beginning, that weapons and nuclear power have been interwoven, whether that's research and development or even its initial creation. Even thinking about all of that research and development, imagine where we could be now if that had been put into something that was more sustainable, into renewables, and that's still happening today. And the military connection that was discussed before is that there have been evidence submitted to public accounts, which is currently investigating the cost of the Hinkley deal. Senior scientists make the case and that the costs of the Trident programme could be unsupportable without an effective subsidy from electricity consumers to military nuclear infrastructure. As a result of a question in Parliament by Caroline Lucas, ministers have now admittedly the military link between in parliamentary records, which refers specifically to waste management and the shared skills base, stating that it's fully understood that civil defence sectors must work together to make sure resource is prioritised appropriately for the protection and prosperity of the United Kingdom. As is stated, even Rolls-Royce have openly stated that on one particular application of deployment of skills and development through the civil nuclear programme would be the ongoing maintenance of the military nuclear weapons programme. They argue that the cross-subsidy from civil to military departments would save the Ministry of Defence significant sums of money, relieving the burden of the Ministry of Defence of developing and retaining skills and capability. For an open and democratic debate to take place about Hinckley, it is essential that ministers come clean about how defence policy is influencing government decision-making on civil nuclear power, whether the government is using Hinckley to cross-subsidise the UK's nuclear weapons capability, and whether consumers might be paying for Trident through their electricity bills. Let's also be clear that in this debate, renewables absolutely crush nuclear. Wind power could generate the same amount of electricity as Hinkley Point at a cost saving to the British public between 16 to 22 billion pounds. Let's not let the government make the same costly mistake again with Wylfa, the nuclear power station on Anglesey, proposed by Horizon Nuclear Power, a UK nuclear power company wholly owned by subsidiaries Hitachi, as we've heard, a Japanese company that helped build the Fukushima reactions. The subsidies from Hinckley could even go on to develop new, we're seeing at the moment that investment in nuclear is completely changing our energy mix from around the world. And we're currently seeing entire countries being powered for days, weeks, even months as a result of their nuclear power generation rather than using fossil fuels or nuclear. And the subsidies that have gone into nuclear could be going into something like the tidal lagoon in Swansea, something that would be revolutionary in renewable power. It would make us world leaders in that type of technology, helping us build new skills here in the UK and helping us secure our energy mix for the future. And it's been mentioned about the politics of onshore wind. It's incredible how politicised something that could completely change our relationship with energy is, and to the extent that in Wales, where I'm from, we're currently getting more devolution to the Welsh Assembly. One of those parts is that they're going to give Wales control of energy production in Wales. But the Conservative government have removed one thing from that agreement, that's wind power, saying that Wales can control all of their energy mix, but they're not allowed to build onshore wind without a discussion at Westminster. Funny coming from a government when David Cameron's father-in-law makes millions of pounds for a wind farm that's currently on his land. And anyway, by the time places like Hinckley or new nuclear power comes in line with nuclear energy, it'll be too late to provide the energy security that we so desperately need. Hinckley is already predicted to be 8 years late in its development, so we're looking to 2025 until it will be there. Too late to help us meet the legally binding emission reduction targets from the fourth carbon budget. And new renewables offer a reliable and timely replacement to fossil fuels, providing a realistic opportunity to meet the targets set out by the Paris Agreement and the legal requirements of the Climate Change Act. Nuclear simply doesn't do that. Our government is addicted to fossil fuels, it's addicted to nuclear power, and it's governed by politicians who are failing to grasp the opportunities and potentially afforded by the nuclear revolution and the latest energy developments. Politics is all about priorities, and the decision to put our eggs in the nuclear basket actively undermines the renewable sector, and it's an economic tragedy. We are prioritising the building of new and expensive ways to produce energy at a time when we should be focusing on a dual strategy of reducing energy demand through energy efficiency measures on the one hand, and maximising the use of the diverse and abundant renewable energy sources that nature has kindly placed on the doorstep for us. The electricity generated by Hinckley could be the most expensive in the world. It's been estimated that the strike price of £92.50 per megawatt hour is to rise with inflation to 124 by 2023, 3 times the current wholesale electricity price. The cost of electricity produced by offshore wind is at least a third cheaper than the price set for Hinkley. The National Grid's energy scenarios predict that small-scale distributed generation will represent a third of total capacity in the UK by 2020. But the government is actively undermining this transition through prioritising investment into nuclear. Even Austria and Luxembourg are legally challenging the European Commission's decision to allow state aid for Hinkley. So this is a nuclear, and opposition from across Europe is growing. Although the nuclear industry advocates a future UK energy mix that includes both nuclear and renewables, the eye-wateringly expensive cost of nuclear and the extent to which it's being subsidised means that projects like Hinkley are being supported at the expense of renewables. And what happens at the end of this cycle, like, for example, our example in Germany? Because nuclear waste is one of the most significant and enduring problems with nuclear energy, and that there is still no solution to the nuclear waste problem. According to Greenpeace, over its lifetime, Hinkley will produce waste equivalent to 80% of all the radioactive waste produced in the UK. This poses a huge long-term environmental challenge, which adds to the security risks associated with nuclear waste-producing facilities, and particularly the one at Sellafield. There should be a vote in Parliament on nuclear. The Hinkley project has been developed since 2007, and in September 2016, the government signed an agreement with EDF to build a nuclear power station and the contract for difference for the project. This occurred without there ever being a chance for Parliament to have their say on the vote, despite the huge costs of the project to our government. The government has not revisited these terms of the deal, even though the estimated costs to the consumer have arisen at least 5-fold between the original plan in 2013 and now. If any project should be voted on in Parliament, then it's that of Hinkley and that of nuclear power, or nuclear power. Because let's be clear, the renewable revolution is here. Globally, since 2009, the cost of solar modules have fallen by 75% and is set to continue to fall. Since 2010, onshore wind capacity has doubled. Solar and wind energy are now the same price or cheaper than new fossil fuel capacity in more than 30 countries. Our Green MEP, Molly Scott-Cato, has demonstrated that in the southwest of England, all of their electricity demands could be met through nuclear energy, which would create 100,000 new jobs at the same time. Denmark is aiming to be 100% renewable by 2050. The UK has the potential to place itself alongside other world leaders and rise to this challenge as well. We should be taking every opportunity to be pioneers, every opportunity to be innovators. And when it comes to investment, research and development in the energy of the future, we need to stop getting stuck in this dead end of nuclear power. Thank you.
I'm afraid that our time is up and the doors are going to be closed very soon. We're past the bewitching hour of 9 o'clock. I want to say a few concluding very remarks. I want to say thank you to Dave Bolton, who's standing there, who organised this, and to Rick, God knows where he's gone, and Rick here, and to Liz, who's sitting here at the front. They have been prime movers in organising this meeting. I want to have one more sentence. I want you all to go home this evening and think about the fact that we have got all the arguments. It's the government that's wrong. I also want you to think that, I want to realise that nuclear power is steadily becoming less and less popular. Renewables are far, far more. We are going to win this argument. The point is that the next election, it's difficult to gaze into the crystal ball and say what will happen, but I don't think it's very likely that whoever, whatever the platforms are put out and what we're going to be voting for, I very much doubt that nuclear power is going to be high on the agenda. Government realised it's a vote loser for them. What the other parties will do, a bit more hard to say. But nevertheless, the prognosis for the government and its nuclear plans are suspect. And I want us to all know that, and that come the next election, we can deliver a vote saying to the government, no, we don't want this stuff. So be optimistic. Although the government's banging the drum right now on nuclear, we've got the arguments and we've got an election coming up, okay? Thank you very much for coming.